Hello, boys and girls. Today we're going to be reading another story in our Storyworks Junior magazine, and this one is called The Halifax Explosion. Remember that through Google Classroom, you guys have access to these stories. You need to make sure that you're going back and reading them or pausing this video and reading while you're answering the questions in the assignment, because all of your teachers, including myself, were looking at some of your assignments and you're not doing as well as you think you are. You need to make sure that you're really paying attention to the videos, you're pausing and you're reading as we go along, and you're trying your best on these assignments because we're starting to notice that you're not doing as well. So you need to make sure you're still putting in the effort, even though we're not at school. All right, so today's standard is going to be the same one as it was when we did Chicken Nugget Nation, which is I can ask and answer questions by referring to this text. So remember, great readers ask questions before, during, and after reading. I know all of you guys are great readers, and everybody here can become a better reader, and this is the kind of things that we need to be doing to become a better reader. Asking questions before, during, and after reading. And we're using text to answer our question. We're not just relying on our brain. Good readers use our brain and the text evidence that we have to answer questions. So make sure you guys are doing that. Before we start reading, I want you guys to take a look. This is the story that we're reading today. The Halifax Explosion. We're going to set a purpose for reading. So before we read, we're going to think, is this a fiction or a nonfiction text? Well, I know that a nonfiction text is when the author is going to be giving you information about something that happened, a true event that happened, giving you information, facts, all the details, things like that. Whereas a fiction text is just going to be telling you a story. So if I take a look at the title, The Halifax Explosion, and I look around some of my text features, I have some bold words. If I look on the next page, I have some photographs and some captions. I have a map down here. I know that this is going to be a nonfiction text. The author is going to be giving me information about something that really happened. The other question that I want us focusing on before we start reading is, what was the Halifax explosion? And how did it happen? Think about what you know about an explosion, and it doesn't just happen out of the blue. Something usually causes it, which makes me think, am I going to be seeing some text structure in here, like cause and effect? Sounds like there's going to be a problem, and hopefully we'll have a solution. Maybe some sequencing. So we're going to be focusing on that as well, and we're going to be marking those different things. All right, so let's get reading. The Halifax Explosion. Up here it says, as you read this article, pay attention to the key details to help you understand what happened and why. So that's one of our questions that we discussed. What was the Halifax explosion and how did it happen? Why did it happen? All right, the Halifax explosion. 100 years ago, a disaster in Canada killed thousands and shocked the world. Okay, so this says 100 years ago. So that's some sequencing right there. This wasn't recent. This wasn't when I was alive or when your parents were alive or when you were alive. This happened 100 years ago. All right, let's get reading. Noble Driscoll, 13, woke up in a pile of rocks and crushed concrete. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and highlight his name. Here's a picture of him right here. He was 13 years old. All he could see around him were heaps of burning brick and ash. Where was his family? Where were his friends? Noble thought he might be the last person alive. Okay, well, why does he think he's the last person alive? Well, when he woke up, all he could see around him were heaps of burning brick. Heaps are like piles. So when he woke up, he didn't wake up in his bed or on the couch taking a nap. He woke up and all he could see was piles of burned brick and ash. His family wasn't around, his friends weren't all around. So if that happened to me or you, we might think that we're the last person alive too. It was the morning of December 6th, 1917. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that too because that's a date. It's important. Just minutes before, things had been normal in Halifax and Dartmouth. These are two cities in Nova Scotia, Canada. They sit on the Atlantic Ocean. Between them is a narrow harbor. A harbor is an area of calm water near land where ships can dock, almost like a parking lot for ships. So there's two cities, Halifax and Dartmouth, and in between is like this little parking lot for ships called a harbor. That morning, people were busy. Moms served up bowls of oatmeal, kids gathered their school books, dads went into work. In Noble's neighborhood in Halifax, horses clip-clopped down the streets, pulling wagons behind them. Remember, guys, this happened 100 years ago. So people weren't taking the bus to work. They weren't taking cars. It was horses. They clip-clopped down the streets. Factories made flour, beer, metal items, and more. At the harbor, men carried cargo onto giant ships. Cargo is something carried from one place to another by boat. So if you guys have ever been to the beach, maybe you've seen a really big ship out in the ocean that's carrying cargo. It could be carrying supplies. It could be carrying really anything. It's just a way to get things from one place to another by boat. Noble could see the harbor from his backyard. He loved to watch the ships pass by. Most belonged to the military. The military are armed forces such as the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Air Force. These are all different branches of the military, and the military are armed forces to help our country. So it says that most of the ships belonged to the military. They were carrying supplies and soldiers to Europe. A terrible war, World War I, had been fought there for 3 years. On one side of the war, there was a group of countries that included Great Britain, Canada, which was then part of Great Britain, France, Russia, and the United States. On the other side was a group of countries led by Germany. Millions of soldiers had died in bloody battles. Okay, so what were most of the ships near Noble's house carrying? Well, remember, most of the ships belonged to the military. It says they were carrying supplies and soldiers to Europe, and they were probably doing this because a lot of soldiers had died and the war had been being already fought for 3 years. So they probably needed medical supplies. They needed more soldiers. So that's probably why they were doing that. All right, let's move on to the next section. Crash, whoosh is the name of our next heading. So my question is, what is the word crash describing? What is the word whoosh describing? So let's get to reading. On that morning of December 6th, here's another date, one of the ships near Halifax was the Mont Blanc. There was something about the Mont Blanc that only a few people knew. It was loaded with dangerous chemicals. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that because the author wants us to know that it's important by telling us that only a few people knew about it. It was like a secret. It also had barrels filled with benzol. This is a liquid similar to gasoline. It can blow up easily. Uh-oh. I'm making a prediction in my head, and I'm predicting that this isn't going to end well. Something can blow up easily. Doesn't seem like a good thing. Around 8:30 a.m., the Mont Blanc entered Halifax Harbor. At the same time, a ship called the Emu was leaving the harbor. The Emu ended up in the way of the Mont Blanc. As the two ships sped towards each other, both pilots blared their whistles, but it was too late. Crash! The Emu smashed into the Mont Blanc. So right here, boys and girls, we have another type of text structure. Actually, we have two. This is definitely a problem. I'm seeing a problem. The Emu smashed into the Mont Blanc. Two ships just smashed into each other. That is a problem. We also have a cause and effect relationship. The Emu was leaving the harbor at the same time that the Mont Blanc was entering the harbor. So, because the two ships were entering at the same time, or one ship was entering and one ship was leaving, the effect is that the two ships crashed. So now I know what that word crash was referring to. It was meaning the smashing of the two ships. The barrels of benzol fell over and splashed open. The metal on the two ships scraped together. Sparks flew. And at this time, boys and girls, I'm going to give you the secret word. Remember, this is our secret. Don't tell anybody. This is how I know that you tuned into this recorded lesson. The secret word is fire. Shh, don't tell anybody. All right, let's keep reading. So the metal on the two ships scraped together and sparks flew. And then whoosh. Okay, so here's our word whoosh. We're going to be able to tell what that word is describing. The benzol burst into flames. Another problem. Francis Mackey, the Mont Blanc's pilot, knew there was nothing he could do. Soon, the rest of the chemicals on the ship would blow up. The crew could stay on the boat and die, or they could get off the ship. All right, so let's quickly take a look at our pause and think, what happened when the two ships crashed into each other? Well, the metal on the two ships scraped together and sparks flew, sparks like fire, and then the benzol burst into flames. So now we're about to have an explosion. So, I know we haven't found out what happened next, but this sounds like it could be answering our question, what is the Halifax Explosion and how did it happen? All right, boys and girls, make sure you guys work hard to answer those questions in your assignment today. We're not going to finish the rest of the story, but we'll finish it on Friday. Okay? Talk to you guys later.